Iran, in Iran, consenting adults could be killed for falling in love if their love happened to be of the same sex. And if a gay teen under 18 fall in love and acted upon that, they face torture through lashing. Just let that sink. People are getting systematically and publicly murdered for falling in love. And all of that hate is happening mainly because of the enforcement of the Islamic regime in Iran to the Islamic Sharia that punishes same-sex love and its expressions with execution, and sometimes public executions to traumatize the others. Right before the Islamic Revolution and the rule of the Islamic regime, same-sex weddings were celebrated and even had news coverage. And if we go further in history, we would find that there is a significant amount of literature in Persian that contained explicit same-sex illustrations and even poems and texts from medieval times that described to be homoerotic. That does not mean that before Iran was an absolute safe haven for LGBT people, but the situation was never that brutal. In accordance with the current Iranian laws, hundreds or thousands of LGBT people have been executed since the call of the Islamic regime founders to exterminate gay people, let alone all of those who live in fear or even took their lives out of living under such persecution. Another one of the worst human rights crimes of Islamic regime against LGBT people in Iran, after killing them, is that the government of Iran pushes sex reassignment surgeries on gay people as a cure to homosexuality. To help you better grasp how terrible is that if you are a heterosexual cisgender, imagine if someone pressured you to go under the knife and change your sex that matched your identity. Pressuring gay people with gender that matches their identity to change their sex is a simply horrendous crime. LGBT rights bodies or organizations are not allowed to function in Iran. Publications that portrays LGBT people in positive lights are prohibited. Therefore, the duty of defending the vulnerable LGBT people there lies in the hands of those who manage to flee outside. Let the Iranian government know that they cannot get away with causing so much pain and injustice. Everybody or a government that normalizes relationship with the Iranian Islamic regime is empowering this government, and subsequently they would also have the blood of the innocent on their hands. Those LGBT people who got executed or tortured by the regime, or even those who took their lives out of living out the persecutory practices of the regime. If you live in one of the world's relatively few democracies, then you have the chance to change this inhuman situation. There are channels by which you could influence your country's policies to help in enforcing a boycott to the Islamic regime that would hopefully eventually help in eliminating these practices without a war.